On May 4, 1970, a peaceful Ohio campus turned into a battlefield. The Vietnam War was raging, protests were spreading, and by the end of that day at Kent State University, 4 students were dead, 9 wounded, and America was forever changed. The spark came days earlier when President Richard Nixon announced the U.S. invasion of Cambodia, seen as an expansion of the Vietnam War. Students across the country erupted in anger. At Kent State, rallies were organized. But the protests weren't just homegrown. Buses arrived bringing in outside activists, some radical, some eager to fan the flames of unrest. This mix of students and outsiders made the demonstrations larger, louder, and far more tense. On May 1st, peaceful demonstrations escalated. That night, crowds swelled in downtown Kent, smashing windows and clashing with police. The governor of Ohio, James Rhodes, declared the situation a crisis, calling in the National Guard. By May 2nd, Guard troops with rifles and bayonets were stationed on campus. Over the weekend, students burned the ROTC building to the ground. Guard troops answered with tear gas and mass arrests. By May 4th, the stage was set. Thousands of students gathered for another anti-war rally, even though authorities had banned it. Guardsmen lined up in full combat gear, facing off against unarmed students. Both sides were exhausted, angry, and ready to snap. Shortly after noon, Guardsmen advanced, firing tear gas and pushing students up Blanket Hill. Some protesters threw rocks. Most were simply standing, watching, shouting. Then came the moment that defined the day. A group of Guardsmen suddenly turned and opened fire. In just 13 seconds, nearly 70 rounds were fired into the crowd. 4 students, Allison Krause, Jeffrey Miller, Sandra Scheuer, and William Schroeder, were killed. 9 others were wounded, some paralyzed for life. What made the tragedy even more shocking is that not all of those shot were protesters, 2 were simply walking to class when the bullets struck. The image of a young woman kneeling over Jeffrey Miller's body became one of the most haunting photographs of the Vietnam era. The nation erupted. More than 400 colleges shut down in strikes and protests. For many Americans, Kent State confirmed their worst fears, that dissent at home could be met with deadly force. Years later, investigations ruled the shootings unjustified. Still, no Guardsman was convicted. The question of whether outside agitators pushed events toward violence remains debated, but what is certain is that the deaths changed public opinion on the war, and on the role of the government in silencing dissent. May 4, 1970, is remembered not as a battle, but as a massacre. Kent State showed that the war had come home, and that the fight for peace carried risks even on a quiet college campus.